Hello everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out. It is really, really nice to see you all. I've missed you all very, very much, and the chat is going really wild with hearts today. Hold on. Allow me to just change the chat so that you can actually see yourselves. I'd also like to apologize. As you might be able to hear in the background, the power supply on my computer is going absolutely fucking wild. I've ordered a new one. It's been making that kind of noise for a long time. So I've been needing to get it replaced for a little bit. But yes, thank you all so very much for coming out. Today's stream is a very special one. After having spent some time with the lovely Reimu on her advice stream, I sort of thought that after the amount of advice that I tend to give out on my normal streams, I figured it might be a nice idea to allow people to submit some ideas for things in a more organized format, I suppose. So what I've done is I've set up a hashtag called KinDesperate, where all of you can submit your woes, your worries, your problems, and with a little luck, I might just be able to help you out. So, what I'd like to be really, really clear about, you know, and what I want you all to remember, and I do have this in a pinned comment, but I'd like to say it again. I am not a therapist. I am a hideous and terrifying demon who is 400 years old. Thank you very much. We hit 150k, by the way. I'm a hideous demon, about 400 years old, although I do not have a therapist's degree. I do not have a PhD. I'm not a professional. And so I want you to understand that I am not here to diagnose you with anything. I am not here to let you marinate on misdiagnoses, and I am not here to give you professional advice. I will not be recommending anything like that. Today is simply a chance for me to look back upon my 400 years of life and then some, and to draw upon that experience to give some of you a little bit of a hand. So, if you'll just give me one moment, I'll finish setting up, and then we can get on with everything that we're trying to do. Huh? In the meantime, I'm really glad that you guys seem to be having such a good time, and this stream is really popping off. We have a lot of viewers in here today, like really, really quickly, which is a lot of fun. Okie dokie. To start with, we have a lovely tweet from Reimu, who has said, "I made a pact with a demon the other day, and he hasn't done his part of the contract, or AKA, he hasn't bought me the Valorant skin that I want. Should I just kill him, or..." I've got a flask of tea here. Oh, that's perfect. I don't think I put too much sugar in this time. Reimu does enjoy a bit of a spar with me. Does enjoy haunting my Twitter replies. I don't recall officiating this pact in writing. Perhaps you'll just have to keep waiting, but also I'd like to remind you that you shouldn't pick a fight with me because you certainly won't come out alive. I'll go right through you and it'll be you who ends up on the floor. Is that understood? Alright, moving on. This one's quite funny. So these people say that they realize that their girlfriend has said that they think they think they're similar to Mr., which I understand to a lot of you is probably a joke. However, I think it actually holds some water, and I think it might be interesting to sort of look at this as a bit of a serious thing, because in some instances, what can wind up happening. Who's molding, is she? Yeah, I bet she is. I think what... So let me try and think about how I'm going to answer this. The most important thing about this is that sometimes in relationships, we can sort of have a differing sense of humor or a different standard as to what we're okay being told or telling one another. So in my mind, these two perhaps this was a very serious context where they said, yeah, you are like that bottom bastard. And then all of a sudden it becomes a massive domestic. Or, in my mind, what I'm seeing here, and I understand that you guys are treating it like a joke, but this could actually apply to a lot of people listening. Oh, the mic is wonderful, by the way, isn't it? It's the link to it is in the description. The person who drew it, I think they're wonderfully talented. Did this in like one night. It's fantastic. Thank you all very much for the supers, by the way. I think that sometimes our partners can make comments that to them seem like playful banter, but to us can actually come off as rather more hurtful than I think they really intend for it to be. And I think one of the things about this that can be really tragic is that sometimes in relationships we can often have the issue where we don't feel as though we have the right to mention anything. So in your case, I think something that may have happened is that when they say this, you think, oh, they must be joking, of course. But even then, that affects us as well. We can take a look at it and wonder, oh, massive Akasupa from Vanessa. Thank you ever so much. That's really, really generous of you. Thank you. I'll try not to answer too many supers today. Might have to do a Zatstan in the next couple of days because I'd rather focus on the issues at hand. But thank you ever so much for the generosity as well. But like I was saying, the humor can often make it feel as though we don't have a right to complain. We can often feel like, oh, they were joking, so it doesn't matter. But then if something does hurt you, what you can often think is, oh, perhaps, you know, they didn't mean it. Perhaps I should just kind of suck it up and deal with it, which in my mind is often the wrong way of going about it. I think that a true relationship, and one that is destined to last a while, is one where you can really go up to your partner and say, hey, I know you were just joking, but that did hurt. And if your partner does love you, and if you guys have a strong connection, then it's very likely that you guys might be able to perhaps work out a bit of a better understanding. So let's say, for example, in this case, you know, they compare you to Mr. Maybe you think, you know, when you ask, can't tell if it's cute or if it means I need help, right? If you take it as though that maybe they're using it as a way of teasing you, and if that does hurt, perhaps the best way of going about it is letting them know and saying, hey, you know, I understand that was a joke, but I'd like it if you didn't do that again. And then maybe in future, they'll have a better understanding of how not, excuse me, oh goodness. They'll have a better understanding of how not to hurt you in future. The best way of doing this is to be gentle, to be understanding, because in all honesty, they most likely didn't mean to hurt you. And so if you're understanding and you don't take it personally, you say, hey, I know that wasn't meant to hurt me, but it kind of did. Would you mind if you didn't do that again? For the most part, I think a lot of people will be very understanding, and it can lead to an even stronger connection in future. So that was kind of mostly a joke, but I think it led to some pretty genuine advice. So that's good. Next of all, my dick too heavy. I don't know why you're coming on a therapy stream to ask for help with that, because to be honest, I mean, you know, I feel like you're just sort of out here winning. You know, if you ever feel insecure about anything, you can just kind of sit back and be like, I mean, I might be insecure about various things in my life, but I mean, my dick is heavy. There you go, right? No need to worry. No need to worry at all. Okay, next one. This one is a little more serious. I'm returning to uni in a few weeks, and the last semester really tanked my motivation, especially as I spent most of it with my eyes glued to a screen due to online lectures. Might you have any advice, my lord? One second, I'm gonna have some tea. This one probably rings true for a lot of people, a lot of people, because so many of us, so many of you in particular, I don't think I ever went to school, but I understand that during the age of the COVID-19 pandemic, the majority of us had to get used to online school or work, and it just isn't the same, is it? It just isn't the same. Thank you all so much for the supers. It just isn't the same as waking up in the morning and having to either get a bus or a commute or somehow to drink in the fresh air, see people's faces, all of that kind of thing. I think when it comes to when it comes to motivation, there are a lot of factors that play into it, right? There's the fact that when we go to work, it's not just about doing the work, it's about everything that comes with it. It's about office banter, it's about making friends, it's about office flirting, maybe. It's about all sorts of things. And it's about the commute, getting your fresh air, listening to music on your way to work, that sort of thing. There are so many different aspects to motivation that make us excited to wake up in the morning. If you have a really vibrant and exciting office life, like, to be honest, like I have, I mean, I don't leave my own home to do this work, but I would treat Luxiem as the best co-workers that I could ask for, and getting to see them every day is a real treat. But for many of you, I understand that during COVID you would have been left sorely alone, and that's really tragic. So what I would say is that try not to give up, okay? What is happening now is that now that we have, so a good example would be this Omicron variant, right? It's very transmissible, although less dangerous. And we've been able to prepare a vaccine for it, a booster jab, in almost no time at all. And so I think that what that means is the world is slowly but surely getting very used to the concept of this virus. And I think that we're all getting a lot more together when it comes to the idea of dealing with maybe having to cope with the new variant every once in a while, all of that kind of thing. And so I would say that while we've been used to all of this kind of stuff for so long and it feels like it might not change, to me personally, I think it is changing. And I think that we might be able to get used to those lovely in-person interactions yet again. Although what I would say is that even if it doesn't, let's say a really awful hypothetical. What if, there is another lockdown and we all have to stay inside? I think that the right way of doing this sort of thing is to really take a moment to reflect and to think about the kinds of things that we are missing by not going into work, right? By not going into work or school or whatever, what do we miss out on? Is it social interaction? Is it fresh air? Is it all those sorts of things? Because to be honest, those are still available to us, even if we are locked down. So I think if we really focus on it and we really try to take a step back and wonder, well, what am I missing? Thank you ever so much for the Aka Super. That's really, really generous. Asi jayo. Of course you can. But anyway, fresh air and socialization are all available to us, whether we can go into work or school or not. And I think that by focusing really hard on, on reflecting on what we're missing and what is making us upset, then I think we stand a better chance of adding those things back into our lives, even if we are locked down. It's not perfect by any means. It really, really isn't perfect. However, it's something. So, for example, in my case, right, if I'd consider myself, I'm sort of ambiverted, I suppose. I enjoy my alone time, but I think I have a really good time hanging out with lots of different people. And during lockdown, lacking the opportunity to talk to many people was quite depressing, and it was a little bit upsetting. But during that time, it was conducive to focus on finding more online friends to hang out with, or connecting with my real world friends and finding ways to hang out with them while we were offline. There are all sorts of ways that I think with just a little self-reflection and with a little bit of hard work that we can really focus up and decide on how we can get through this together. Okay, so I'm really sorry your motivation is tanking. But I know that if there is some other lockdown, and if there is something that kind of focuses up on making us stay inside again, which, God forbid, let's hope that doesn't happen. I would really hope that with a little self-reflection, we'll be able to work past it, and we won't have to worry about it so much anymore. Okay? I hope that helped. Let's move on. So this one has a lovely little drawing of a cat going blah 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 blah, which I think a lot of you can really relate to. Rosette Nebula gives us a lovely tweet. I've always had a bad habit, and I don't know how to correct it. I'm a night bird who likes to be active late at night. I usually go to bed very, very late and wake up at noon the next day or later. I know it's not a good habit, but I can't change it. How can I? Well, this, I think, is a problem for a lot of you, especially considering Luxiem like to stream. A lot of you Luxiem fans, you know, will be struggling with the fact that we like to stream many, many different time zones. I mean, Luca streams on an Australian time zone. Mr. and I do so in EU/SEA time zones, and then other people like Shu will stream on an American time zone, and that gets even worse if you're a fan of NIJISANJI EN as a whole. So what I like to think is that sometimes you have to decide whether or not it's worth changing this. Because to me, if you're very young and if you don't have much to keep up with, like if all you've got going is, you know, if you don't have much to keep up with and if you're enjoying what you're doing, I think staying up late and being a bit of a night owl is fine. It's a fine way to live as long as it makes you happy and it makes you comfortable. It's not good for you though. There are a lot of things that you really do need to catch up on if you want to live as a bit of a night owl. And there are a few things that I think can really, really help. So, first of all, an important thing to remember about sleep is that, let me think, sleep is a lot more than just deciding to go to bed. It sort of relies on a lot of different things, and it's also, you know, a lot more reliant on other factors than just getting up early so that you're tired enough to go to sleep. That can help. But there are a few things that will help if you do really want to get on a normal sleep schedule. So my first bit of advice would be to don't worry, because a lot of us wind up staying up quite late, and sometimes that's fine. You know, if all we're trying to do is hang out with some friends who stay up late, then whatever, you know. But obviously doing so long term can be quite unhealthy. So here are a few of my steps to sort of fixing that. The number one thing you want to pay attention to is your circadian rhythm, right? So what is that? The circadian rhythm is something that we all have to deal with, which is the fact that, you know, when human beings first, you know, we evolved to get energized and wake up when we see sunlight and to get tired when it gets dark. But nowadays we have blue light from our screens. A lot of us, especially during COVID, stay inside and don't see a lot of sun a lot of the time. And this can have a really powerful effect on our biology. So let's say if you know, I've done this before. If you wake up and you start working on your computer early in the morning and then you never see any change in sunlight, your body is going to be both exhausted but not sleepy at the same time. It won't feel as though any time has passed. And as such, you're going to wind up with a really poor quality of sleep, even if you did get a lot of work done. So the simplest way of getting that sorted, to be honest, make yourself go for a walk while it's still bright outside. That's the biggest one. And I know that for some people, going on walks isn't always the best. Sometimes your area isn't all that safe. Maybe there's this, maybe there's that. Maybe some of you just live in like a cityscape or a city environment where walking just isn't all that fun and there's not all that much to see. But getting out and seeing the sun and getting fresh air will help. I mean that. It's not, and I understand that for some of you that can feel really, really difficult, especially if you suffer from depression. But it is a small thing to do, and it will help quite a lot. So I would say, sort of going on a bit of a tangent, if you do suffer from depression, and if you are suffering from motivation, what I would say is to start with making a little walk the first thing that you do to try and fix what you've been going through. So it doesn't matter when you wake up, it doesn't matter how late you stay up, none of that matters, right? You can be as slovenly and as at the mercy of your mental illness as you want, as long as you tell it, right, I'm going to do one thing today. One thing. It'll take between 10 minutes to an hour, and it's going to be getting my keys, and it's going to be leaving the house, and it's going to be seeing the sun, and that's it. Other than that, order takeout, microwave food. Go easy on yourself, because what you've just done is you've taken the first step. I think that what a lot of advice for people who are depressed tends to get wrong is the fact that they expect people who are depressed to be able to make massive changes to their lifestyle overnight, which is frankly impossible and kind of deeply unhealthy in a lot of ways. So the way, you know, they'll sort of be like, you've just got to get outside, go to the gym, do this, do that, get on with your work, wake up early, go to bed early. For people who have this kind of a problem, it's so much more complicated than that. It is so difficult to not only physically feel the energy to get up and the energy to, you know, get out and to really do these things to help move yourself along in life. We also, you know, when depressed, will tend to look at ourselves and think, well, why should I bother? It's a really unfortunate reality that people who have depression will look at themselves and not see a reason to improve because they see themselves as so worthless, which I'd like to remind you, and maybe this is just a bit of a worthless affirmation, but I want to just look at you guys and say, if you ever feel like you're worthless, you aren't. All of you are worth something, all of you were put on this earth for a reason, and all of you deserve a really nice life and deserve to keep living, okay? Don't forget that, or else I'll be really disappointed in you. Don't forget it. So if you are depressed, and if you are struggling to get outside, just do me a favor and do one thing. Each day, do just one thing to offset that depression. Just one. And to start with, go for a walk. That's it. That's it. Just put some clothes on. Doesn't matter if you haven't showered. Doesn't matter if you feel gross, or it doesn't matter if it's exhausting. Just make yourself get up at any time of the day and get some fresh air. That's all I want you to do. And maybe if you do it for one day, maybe you can do it the next day after that as well. And maybe if you do it that day, the next day after it won't feel so hard. There are lots of ways to make this work, and I just really don't want you guys to feel like improving is impossible, because it is possible. So that was a long-winded answer to a question about staying up late, but hopefully it helps some people. All right, let's move on. Also going to have another sip of tea. Yes, chat, baby steps is exactly right. Okay, Flying Shoe has asked, I know it may sound silly, but I'm on my final year of uni, and I only need to finish my thesis to graduate, but I'm not ready to be a part or full-time adult. This is a big one. While I was looking through the tag, I saw quite a lot of questions like this. And so what I'd like to sort of say is an interesting thing I learned, or that I've sort of experienced from having been around so long, is that people don't tend to feel like they're actually an adult until they're like, what, 35? You finishing university and then going off into the world, everybody who does that still feels like a kid. Everyone still feels like a kid in an adult's world, and it's such a I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I feel woefully unprepared for various things that come my way, and I'm older than all of you. At least I would hope so. If any of you are older than me, I mean, Shitang, thank you very much for the 50. That's very generous. I'd like to think that I'm the oldest one here, but if any of you have managed to outlive 400, then, you know, please get in touch. I'd like to meet someone who has that perspective as well. But anyway. I think feeling ready is tough. It's very tough, because I think in a lot of school systems, they don't do a very good job of preparing us. They prepare us pragmatically for what will come in the future, but they don't prepare us mentally, do they? What they'll tend to do is kind of lay things on very thick and fast, and then just sort of expect you to cope. A friend of mine who, hearing this story, made me absolutely sick to my stomach, told me a story about when she was in school. And it was a very competitive all-girls school that was really only concerned with exam results and that sort of thing. And what they would say is, what would they say? There was a guy who came in, and what he was trying to do was say, oh, here's a fun way of dealing with your exams. We're going to be a bunch of exam ninjas. We're going to drop kick and attack the answers and all of that. And everyone was like, okay, I mean, this is cringe, but I mean, it's fine. And then he came in and he gave this lovely little talk, and then afterwards the headmaster came in, you know, this awful woman comes in and says, and just to remind you girls, if you fail your GCSEs, there will be doors in your life that will close forever. And then that was that. Can you imagine? All right. Personal rant for a sec. Can you imagine being an adult and telling a bunch of children that if they don't do well on a random ass exam, that they're going to just, you know, that's it? This is the kind of pressure that you guys are being put under from a young age, and it's bloody awful. It's really, really awful, and it's there to protect the status quo of school systems and how they can earn enough money to, you know, pay their teachers a good salary, or namely their head teachers. I mean, teachers are, you know, regular teachers are woefully underpaid. It's very disheartening. And so what I want to say is that, Flying Shoe, you aren't alone in feeling massively unprepared, because the true adults in society, the people who are much older than 35 and 40, you know, they've gotten very much used to it after a while. But there are things like mortgages and credit values and all of these numbers and all of these concepts that get thrown at you. And I mean, even for me, I find them overwhelming because these concepts have been introduced in my lifetime. And you know, I'm sat in a house that I feel like I've earned and bought, and then all of a sudden I get told that I need to do all of these other things to do with it. There are utility bills, there's rent, or perhaps there's a mortgage. There's all of this sort of stuff that can be so overwhelming. And so what I want to say is that, again, you're not alone. All of us feel this way. And I think the most important thing for you to do, in my mind, would be to take a step back and think things through in a more objective and pragmatic way. You're not ready to be an adult. And so think about what you are ready to do, right? Think about the little things that you are ready to do. Orion, thank you very much for the 1,000 rubles. Oh, Ryan, it'll be fine. Get yourself some water, okay? Take a step back and think about what it is that you can do, right? So, I imagine that out of all the list of things that you can do, one of them will be something that adults do, right? So, maybe it's, maybe a bad example, but maybe it's maths. You know, maybe you're good at maths. You might be. I don't know. I don't know you. But if you are, then that means that maybe you're going to be good at sorting your finances. And maybe you can start with that. Maybe you can think, right, I'm just going to sit down and figure out how much money I have available to spend this month. That alone, just making like a little piece of paper with your personal budget on it will be like, yeah, you know, I can do this. Sure, I can do this, right? Of course you can. Of course you can do that. Or maybe you're not good at maths, so what else do you do? Maybe you could, if you're good with people, maybe you can solve a problem that you've been having with a friendship or a relationship. Maybe if you feel like you've always wanted to reconnect with someone, you could try and do that and be the more adult person in the situation. Maybe if you've had a tiff with somebody or an argument, you can be the one who tries to reconnect things. There are all sorts of ways that you can feel like an adult, right? And just doing one of them will set you down that path, and sooner or later, I guarantee you're going to feel so much more confident. I'm not too familiar with this because obviously, you know, when I was in my youth, I was already running a castle, so I think it all came quite naturally to me. And I'm really sorry that I might not be able to give better advice, but I think that, again, I think a lot of this stuff does just come down to baby steps. If you don't feel ready for something, start with what you do feel ready for, and eventually, if you make tiny changes here and there, you will feel ready for the whole thing eventually. But also remember that the majority of us don't feel ready for it until we're well past the legal age to be adults, okay? So please don't worry about it, and remember that we're all here for you. So if you do worry, the desperate tag is always open, so just go ahead and send me something else if you feel like you need more advice, okay? Thank you very much. I'll give you a little kissy on the forehead. Mwah. Alright, moving on. Manabu, mistake. We've got a lovely Mr. fan in the tag today who says, love watching your streams. One of my many worries that I'm not able to express my feelings and emotions to others, and that I can't really talk about it. When people ask me how I feel, I just make a joke and lie to them. This is a common problem for a lot of people, myself included. I think that one of the things that can make this really hard is that sometimes it's really difficult to kind of summon the words to describe exactly how we feel. And sometimes, even worse, we can say something that we think means one thing, some person thinks it means another thing. Maybe they get angry, maybe we wind up ruining a relationship by just asking for help, and all of a sudden we're afraid of ever opening up again. And also, sometimes these truths are really uncomfortable. Maybe sometimes we've actually done something wrong. Maybe we've done the wrong thing, and it isn't as simple as, oh, I don't like myself, or there's this or there's that. Sometimes it can be quite as nasty as, I feel like I've really hurt somebody. But at that same time, we can be so scared of opening up to that because, to be truthful, we're not, as a species, humans aren't a very forgiving bunch, are they? So I think this is a difficult one. It's a very difficult one to overcome. But to me, I think that the right thing would be to keep an eye out for someone, or think about your friends, right? If there's any one of them that you feel like you're genuinely really, really close with, try and talk to them in a way, or try and talk to them about what you're feeling, and try and describe exactly what it is that you're going through, and say, hey, I have problems, but I don't know how to talk about them. If you have just one friend, if you have only one friend who you feel like you can actually speak to about these things, please do it. Because I think that just getting used to talking to one friend about your problems in a really open and honest way, then you'll be so much better at doing it in future, right? It's just a little thing that you can do to progress just a tiny bit farther than you've been used to before. And then once you get used to describing your feelings to your friends, to that one friend that you really like, then maybe in future you'll feel better at doing it in the future. Now, of course, I've seen some people in chat bringing up, what if you don't have that one friend? And that's rough. Maybe you have a parent, try them. But if you don't have that one parent that you can talk to, then I think it's difficult because, okay, here's an idea. I used to do this. If you have literally no one, absolutely not a soul that you feel like you can tell, try wording it to yourself. Here's what I mean. Let's say you've had a really difficult day. Maybe you've been feeling insecure. Maybe you've been feeling like, I feel like I messed up for this job interview. Maybe I did this, maybe I did that. And you feel like all of your friends, as much as you love them, you feel like you really, really can't tell any of them. You don't know how, you're embarrassed, you're afraid. That's normal. Don't worry about it, okay? That's normal, and we're aware of that. If you have a computer, get a Google Doc open. If you don't have a computer, use your phone. If you don't have a phone, I don't know how you're watching the stream, but get a piece of paper and a pen and sit there and write out exactly what you wish you could tell your friend. Write in as brutally honest a way as you can, which is hard, which is very hard, but do so that you understand what's required of you when you do talk to a friend. Write it down, and I think that sometimes when you write things down on a piece of paper and then read them back, it can almost feel like someone's speaking to you and someone is acknowledging what you're saying. Maybe you feel like you're helping the piece of paper with its problems, and suddenly you understand exactly what you're dealing with. It's a bit of a long shot, but I think it's a really, really nice way of making that, again, that first step, that baby step, right? Just a really, really little thing that gets you on the path to being able to talk to people. I think one of the worst things about this stream is going to be the fact that a lot of my advice will come down to eventually you'll have to confront what you're afraid of. You just will. It's scary, deeply scary, to think that, you know, when you come to me and you say, oh, excuse me, you come to me and you say, oh, I wish I could talk to my friends. The solution is, you know, after all of these baby steps, eventually you will have to talk to your friends about how you feel. That is how you solve this. It's scary, but it is what it is. It's deeply scary, but I know you can do it, okay? So take those baby steps, write down what you're feeling on a piece of paper, find one friend that you trust more than anyone else and practice on them, practice on more people, and eventually it'll be okay. So please don't panic, and remember that we, as a clan, are all here for each other. So thank you very much for the question. All right, moving on. Got a lovely picture of a deceased Kermit. Okay. San L asks, I have I have very few friends at school, and I can count the classmates I can talk to on one hand. Going to school and home are all alone. Although every school day is lonely, my day is so happy because of Luxiem. I really appreciate you all and will always support you. This is a rough one, because having friends feels like it's at the core of every part of human culture. It's there's a band of friends in books, especially while we're growing up. In kids' books, it's all about a group of friends, but what if you're a kid who doesn't have any friends? I hate to admit it, but in children's stories, and even more adult stories, the person who doesn't have any friends tends to be the villain, which is really awful when you think about it, right? It's really grim that sort of a stereotype is exercised so very often. And in this sense, I think that you are facing an uphill battle. It's really rough to, in school, be the person who doesn't really have any friends, or to be the person who doesn't have many friends. I think a lot of people can be very cruel and judgmental in school. I think a lot of people can be very, well, yeah, that's just it. They can be cruel and judgmental, and breaking through that to actually make friends is really hard. It's not going to be easy, but what you have mentioned, kids are Raymu, you're absolutely right. Kids are horrible. Kids are really, really gross creatures that just want to kill each other. It's horrible. But what I would say is that although you do have an uphill battle and you don't have many friends, you have admitted that you do have some, right? And I think in this sort of a situation, loud ass motorcycle outside, be quiet, we're trying to have some therapy here. As long as you have one friend, maybe if you literally have one friend, I would say don't think about the quantity of your friendships, but the quality. Sometimes just having a really tiny band of tight-knit friends is all you need. So I think, really, that it's about a bit of an adjustment of perspective. So if you wind up accepting that, alright, maybe I keep my circle small. Maybe I'm only meant Vox again. Fuck them kids. Maybe as a group of friends you decide, like, right, there's only like 2 or 3 of us, whatever. That's us. That's what we've got. We're a little band of brothers. You bet you Spider-Man. And I think that if all you do is try your best to feel... Oh yeah, the popping is the fire. I'm going to have to calm that down a little bit. It's going a little crazy. I think the most important thing is that if you manage to just feel content with the few friends that you do have, it will feel a lot easier for people to come up and approach you and to make friends with you from there. Because I'll be really brutally honest here, The hardest person to make friends with is someone who's desperate to make friends. You know what I mean? How many of you guys have maybe joined a Discord community and you've suddenly have someone DM'd you and said, "Hi, can we be friends?" Sigma stare. It's really kind of weird and intimidating, isn't it? Like, it happens all the time. And I think that the hardest part of that is the fact that the instant you're aware of the fact that someone is like, "I want to be your friend," then the pressure's on. Then you feel like, oh, I've got to be emotionally satisfying for this person, or, you know, or they're probably going to be pretty upset. And that, at least to me, is never the recipe for a successful friendship. If you open it with pressure, it's only going to feel like pressure all the way through. So I think the right thing to do in this sort of a situation is to just take the friends you have and be happy with them. Try your best to be happy with them. You don't have to be happy all the time, but get on well. Just talk to each other when you have a problem. Listen to your friends if they have a problem, and let yourselves be close. Let yourselves enjoy that friendship that you have while you're still so young. And I reckon that if all of you are just a merry little bunch, then it really won't feel so hard for other people to come on board as well. If you want not, then I think a lot of people will find it a lot easier to include themselves, and then it won't feel so hard. I might be completely barking up the wrong tree here, but with friendships, that is my experience. The happier a bunch of people, the less pressured a person will feel to come and approach you, and so the people who do approach you will be the ones who may very well become friends for life. So that's my advice. I'm very sorry if I feel like it's not a terribly familiar situation to me, and so I really hope that I've gotten it right, and I hope that this helps. All right, moving on. Let me have a sip of my tea. Shu doesn't have dentures. He's got lovely pearly whites. Okay. This is one Mystic can relate to. I'm a very loud and humorous person. Real fucking comedian when I'm with my friends, but I can't seem to keep the same attitude when I'm with my family. I become very shy and end up being cold to them, especially to my parents. I would really love to hear your advice. Love you, Vox. It's difficult to say what to think of this one, because family dynamics can be very complicated. The thing about family is that it's like a friendship group that you're assigned at birth. You know, you're born to a group of people that you, for better or worse, just sort of have to get on with, no matter what, right? And that's not easy. Especially if even one of them winds up being really weird and really toxic. That person is your mum, dad, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, whatever. And for better or worse, they will be a part of your life for a very long time. And there's no avoiding that unless you wind up, I don't know, leaving the family. Which I would certainly hope for none of you. Because having family is definitely helpful. Let me try and think about how best to answer this. The best thing I can say is that I think it's pretty normal to feel as though you get on a lot better with your friends. Friends are people that we can see and identify as someone we're similar to, and I think that, especially given that the relationship we have with our parents, at least while we're growing up, is if you're too loud or too rambunctious, your parents will scold and bully you. Maybe not bully, but, you know, they'll tell you off. And that can often make us feel like, depending on how severely they tell us off, this can sort of go into later life and make us feel like we're afraid. We're very afraid to be even slightly cheeky around our parents. The hardest thing about... I got family. The hardest thing about this is to acknowledge the fact that when you're kids... the things your parents' behavior will have an impact on you for the rest of your life. That is a fact. Chances are, if you had parents who yelled at you, you're going to be scared of yelling people for the rest of your life. Because kids' brains absorb that shit like a sponge, and then the sponge turns to a stone with the water just kind of locked on the inside, and it's tragic. But we evolved that way to help us deal with saber-toothed tigers, so you better be thankful. But what I would say is that you've you've unfortunately, I think, dealt with the fact that I don't want to delve too deep because obviously you haven't said so much here, but it sounds to me like you've grown up in quite a tough household that's got some fairly rigid rules, and it's difficult for you to feel like you express yourself, which is why you're so expressive and so happy when you're around your friends, because you don't have your parents breathing down your neck and trying to keep you quiet. So what I would say is that for a lot of us, getting used to the fact that being around your parents isn't ideal is kind of scary, because we all want to love our parents. You know, we want to love where we came from. Obviously we do. But sometimes we have to admit that our parents aren't perfect. You know, if anything, I think it's kind of good that some people have imperfect parents, because that way we feel a little more prepared for how wacky and upsetting the rest of the world is going to be. If we have parents who act like gold every day, then our childhood is going to be filled with wonder, but then we'll enter the real world and get a really nasty dose of reality. So I think the best thing for you to do would be to just sort of... Well, there are two solutions to this, and it depends on how well you know your parents and what you're comfortable doing. So the number one ideal thing to do would be to sit your parents down and say, hey, I feel like I can't talk to you guys, and to have a really strong heart-to-heart. And if your parents love you, they'll listen, and then maybe things will improve. That's difficult, very difficult. Feronia, that's a really generous super. Thank you very much. It's difficult to do because sometimes parents don't listen, right? Sometimes they are very set in their ways and they believe the way that I raise my child is right. And especially I think with dads, you know, they can be very sort of keen on having just one way of doing things, and their way is right. And if you question their way of doing things, then you're wrong and you're being disrespectful and fuck you. And that's not great. So the ideal is talking to your parents, and the ideal is having a heart-to-heart and helping them understand what you're going through and saying like, hey, I want to be happy and loud and excited around you guys. But for some people, we really don't have that option. And so to those of you who feel as though you really can't talk to your parents, you're not alone. And I think that going forward, what you should probably try and do is remember that as you get older, your connection to and relationship with your parents will become less and less frequent. You'll move out, you'll find a job, you might go to university, might do this, might do that, but all of us need to leave the nest at some point. And when you do, your relationship with your parents will become a lot less strained, I guarantee it. And at that point, you don't really need to heal that aspect of your life. You really don't need to try and have a perfect family life, because you can find a perfect family life elsewhere with those friends that you have such a wonderful time talking to, you know? And then around Thanksgiving or Christmas, you'll go back and visit them, and you'll have a bit of an unpleasant reminder of what it's like, but you'll still see your parents, and I imagine you still love them and you'll still do okay, but you at the very least will only have to spend 2 or 3 days with them, and then you can get back to the life you really want to live. So you've got two options depending on your situation, and I would encourage you to think carefully, because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but if you feel like you can talk to your parents, talk to them, please. Tell them how you feel, and I think they'll understand. However, if you really don't feel like you can, remember that this is not the end, and that your life is not going to become considerably worse just because you don't get along as well with your parents. It's not amoral, it's not wrong. I think it's very normal, and it's an experience a lot of us are very, very familiar with. So I think that's all it is. Do your best, and remember that if things do go wrong, the clan is here for you. So just feel free to come back, and we'll be there. So thank you very much. Moving on. This is a nice one. Bao offers their cat as a checkpoint. Hugs for everyone. Look at this cat. He's got a little blep out on the left-hand picture. Isn't that cute? I'm a big fan of this cat, personally, because on the right, he's showing off his little Pete's, his little toe beans. And then on the left, he looks deeply confused. He looks offended almost. So yes, if this is a time where you're feeling as though you're a little bit frazzled by the topics we're talking about, don't worry, you're not alone. Let's just sit and enjoy this cat for a moment. Maybe I should read some supers now. Ophelia, my lord, thank you for your great advice. I hope I can get better in future. I enjoy your voice so much, it makes me feel safe. Thank you very much. Feronia, thank you for the super. Orion, Shitang, thank you for that. Yeah, so I think I've thanked all the big ones, and we'll go ahead and read some more out another time. I've got a lovely picture. I think this is Kazuha from bloody Genshin Impact. Reese says, how do you make friends? I really want to make friends IRL or online, but I get super anxious just by thinking about it. This is one we've kind of been over before. Although this one is sort of wait, hold on, there is one super that came through. Akare, kiss me. Of course. How do you make friends? Genshin Impact. Let me try and think about this one for a sec, because I think giving the same advice as last time would be sort of unfair, but also, you know, it does kind of apply. I think that here's the key, right? Instead of being desperate to make friends, which we all are, believe me, make other people want to be friends with you. Yeah. Online or IRL, get super anxious just by thinking about it. That's normal. That's really normal. Personally, I think the best way... so from this, I'm going to take a guess and say that you're fairly introverted. I think the best way to deal with this kind of a situation is to find an extrovert. The way that extroverts make friends with introverts is that extroverts will just kind of come along and adopt you. They'll just be like, you're my friend now, and they'll pick you up and kind of take you along. And if you're friends with an extrovert, you'll make friends with so many people. It's wild. You'll just sort of... You'll get adopted by an extrovert who decides they're your friend, and then from there, that extrovert will make friends with so many other people, and from that, I think you'll learn quite a bit about how to make friends and how to interact with people. Which is never easy to learn. It's really difficult stuff. It really, really is. But having one person in your life who does well at making friends, and there are lots of them out there, you will learn so much. Be open to learning new things about how this works, and be open to the idea that you may be put in some pretty uncomfortable situations if you want to make friends, right? It's rough. Oh dear. Wait, I think we're coming back. Sorry about the lag, everybody. Thanks for letting me know. It's a little better, but it's not ideal. I'm quickly going to go send a few messages and make sure we can get this sorted. I think there might have been a few internet blackouts in my area recently, so that might have been a part of it. How long was I out for? Oh no, I think we're coming back. British interwebs, you be quiet. Yeah, so it's a little bit better now. Obviously, it's not perfect. The bitrate is about 10,000 kilobytes below where it should be, but hopefully it will repair itself in due course. But yes, like I was saying, look to be adopted by an extrovert, and look to feel ready for what comes next, because it might feel really uncomfortable for you. If you're not used to making friends, then making friends can be quite spooky. Look approachable and not too desperate. Also get adopted by an introvert. I understand this advice isn't the best. It's because truthfully, I'm not terribly familiar with this sort of an experience. I mean, I am, but I am familiar with not being able to make friends. But also, I think that the unfortunate solution is that, or the unfortunate kind of kick in the pants is that I never really went out of my way to fix it. You know, it sort of hit a point where, after a while, you just kind of you kind of just assume that, oh well, I guess that's my lot in life, and you don't really go anywhere from there. It almost feels like you're... Hold on. Somebody's spamming. Let me just time them out. Yeah, there we go. Who wants to be adopted by me? That's it. So, yeah, it's difficult to give advice on someone I'm not terribly familiar with, but that's sort of what I'd say, is that just having one friend who finds it easy to make friends is a good way of suddenly having a really nice group of friends. Although, again, I think the right way to go about this is to, let me have a think. Let me ponder this. Let me ponder my orb for a moment. Joining a VTuber group does help. Although I understand that that isn't an option for everybody. No. So I think that, to be honest, beyond the pressure to make friends, there comes the issue where if you lack self-confidence and you lack self-love, then most likely you are going to struggle to make friends, because what we tend to do when we're in that situation is that we just sort of almost don't really know what to say about ourselves. You know, if we were to get into a bit of an icebreaker situation, you know, you shake hands and they're like, right, what, you know, so what do you like? And you're like, and then all of a sudden you realize that all of your interests are super niche and you have no idea what to talk about, and then all of a sudden the other person finds you weird, and then it becomes like a whole thing. So I don't know, it's quite difficult. The best thing I can say is the whole get adopted by an extrovert thing, and to try not to worry about it so much, okay? I think that whether you've got amazing friends or not, you yourself are still amazing. And the more you believe that, the hardest part is really over, because at that point, you'll really kind of believe that anyone who wants to be your friend is lucky to be your friend, right? I think the more that you feel like you don't have much to offer people, the more that they'll see that as well, and the more that you'll wind up just... Oh, I don't know why this question is stumping me so much. That's a good bit of advice that I just saw in chat. If your interests are very niche, don't worry about trying to make friends with random people. Maybe meet people through that niche, right? There are Discord servers about all sorts of different things that you can try and join. There are all sorts of things that you can manage to do that might really, really help you no matter what. So I would say that's a good way of doing it. Embrace your interests, embrace your niche, and don't worry about making friends with every single person that comes your way, because you really don't need to. Some people just aren't meant to be friends with each other, and that's fine. There are lots of people that you really that would make good friends for you, and some that maybe wouldn't, and that's alright, okay? So please, don't worry about it too much. Find friends where you can, but remember that whether you have friends or whether you don't, you're still worth being friends with. And while that's true, friends will find you eventually. I'm really sorry that one stumped me for a while, but chat really did help me out with that one. Let me have another sip of my tea. Yeah, you can make friends in all sorts of unlikely places. Where maybe you play an MMO. You know, maybe you've been playing some Final Fantasy or something, and then you meet some people in a guild. I'm not sure if they have guilds in that game. I haven't played it. I'm just thinking of my experience playing World of Warcraft for a few years back in the day. Alright, moving on. My lord, my problem is that this cat hates me. Just because I said she was ugly. Why did she remember it for so long? How can I repair our relationship? And she is ugly. I don't think she's ugly. One thing you really ought to remember is that cats are old souls. They hang on to these kinds of things for a long time. And they're also very aware of what they are and what they aren't. This cat, I think, recognized your tone of voice when you called her ugly. And she also isn't ugly, and she knows it. So she's sort of thinking, well, first of all, I don't like the way you address me. And second of all, I'm not ugly. Why are you lying to me? Right? So here's the thing. I think you really ought to apologize to this cat. Recognize that it's not ugly. It's a beautiful cat, right? You take this cat, you give him a big can of tuna, and you say, listen. Scratch it behind the ears and say, listen, I'm sorry. And from there, perhaps the cat may decide to forgive you, but I can't promise you anything. Thank you very much for the tweet. The owner's in the wrong. Don't call your cats ugly. Oh, this is another really good cat. Hello, can you call me Moo? It's my nickname. Hello, Moo. It's just sometimes I don't like my body or my personality, and it's really making me unmotivated. So I was hoping I could get some kind of words of encouragement. Love you. Well, first of all, me personally, Moo, I think you're beautiful, and I think that you've probably got a really beautiful personality as well, especially if you like these kinds of pictures of cats. I think that these sorts of things tend to be shared by people who are really nice. But when it comes to, but of course, hearing those words of affirmation from a stranger on the internet can only do so much. It might give you a bit of a dopamine rush immediately, you know, fill you with serotonin for an afternoon, but will it be enough to really erase these problems? I don't think so. So, when it comes to this sort of thing, I think the battle isn't changing your body or your personality to be more likable by people. I think it's learning to, this is going to sound really cringe, but it's learning to love yourself for what you are. Because you are what you are. It's a pure fact of life. You are what you are. And there is no changing it. You can change bits of it. You can change how you look. You can try and act a different way. But I think people who really go for it, and people who really hang on a minute. I just saw one of Mr.'s tweets and I got distracted. The people who really go for it, I think, tend to lose themselves in a way. If change happens, I think that it happens organically. And if you force change in yourself, then I think that you can wind up feeling a little bit adrift. And maybe your friends will stop recognizing you, maybe they won't. That's the thing, right? If you look at your personality and think that you don't like it and that other people don't like it, you forget that sometimes you've got, the friends who gave you that nickname, right? If you change who you are, then those friends might not recognize you anymore. So I think the most important thing for you to do is to really remember that lots of people out there have fallen in love with you and have become friends with you because of that glowing personality of yours, and some of them have probably become really attracted to you because of that lovely body of yours. So the body is the biggest one that you can kind of like manually try to change, even if it's really, really difficult to do. Getting into like, if you want to work out or you want to like lose or gain weight, you know, that's rough. Like getting into that habit is really, really hard. So I think that while it's good for you, of course it's good for you to sort of make a big change and make yourself go to the gym or make yourself work out or make yourself eat better. I think the first step needs to come, the first step really does need to come from within. It needs to come from learning to just enjoy the way that you look, no matter what. And that's a good one, right? Someone in chat just brought up self-love is not instant, and they're absolutely right. It's a slow burn of a battle that you'll need to get used to over a very, very long time. If you start off like I said to that person before, baby steps, right? Start off in a way that you feel like you can manage. So maybe begin with something that you feel like that's within the realm of possibility. So perhaps maybe there's one aspect of your body that you really do like. Think about it. Focus on it. Look at it. And just be like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. And from there, maybe eventually you can start appreciating other parts of you as well. I also think it does help to have friends who gas you up, you know, to have friends who look at aspects of your body and are like, oh my god, you're so pretty. Oh, you look so hot. You know, that kind of thing. Having friends who are available to gas you up and say like, oh, I think you're really pretty can really help. But of course, validation doesn't need to come from your friends. It should come from you too. It's just difficult when, you know, especially I think if we're aware that something about our body isn't perfect, we can really fixate on it and not be happy until it's been fixed. But of course, really fixing parts of our bodies it takes a long ass time. It takes a really long time. So I'm not an expert on self-love, but I think the first step before you fix, you know, whatever it is that you don't like about your body, learn to really come to terms with yourself and come to accept who it is that you are. Because a lot of people in your life are in your life because they love who you are. And I think that if they can manage to do it, then I think you should be able to as well, okay? So it's not much, and I feel like I'm hitting a point where I'm not giving as good advice as I was at the start, but find a way of appreciating why people love you, practice a little bit of that on yourself, and then after a while, maybe a few days, weeks, months, maybe a few years, I think you'll start really appreciating the amount of things that you personally bring to the table. And if that includes going to the gym, and if that includes going to, you know, changing yourself up and working out and all that kind of stuff, sure. But I think that you deserve self-love, whether or not that's the case, okay? So just do your best to focus on yourself and don't try and change yourself for anybody, because I think that you're really brilliant just the way you are, Moo, okay? Thank you very much for that. So this person says, I was sobbing earlier and I saw this. All the pressure is building up again and it's getting heavier. My birthday's coming. It's my 17th, and I've always been sad every one of my birthdays since 2017. Sometimes I just want to poof and disappear. It's pretty grim. It's pretty grim. So the first thing, this is one I feel fairly familiar with. So the first thing that I'll say to this, that last bit is pretty sad. And what I will say is, please don't, because there's almost 6,000 people in this stream right now who really don't want you to do that. They really want you to be around. And I think that one thing that might... Listen, it might feel a little bit rough to properly acknowledge. And that's okay, right? It might feel really difficult to acknowledge, but... you are young. You're incredibly young. You might not feel like it, because every year that we grow older, we feel like we're the oldest we've ever been. We feel mature. We feel like, oh, I'm aware of, you know, you look back on the past and you feel as though you have such a vast perspective over how those things have transpired, and you can feel so wise and so aware of how these things are going to go down in the future. But no matter how old you get, you never will. And I have to say, 17 is very young, and there is so much more out there for you as long as you stay alive to see it, okay? It's hard. Believe me, it's hard. It's very difficult to just sort of trust that, especially with how sometimes when things get rough, they can feel as though things just sort of close in, and maybe you can't see 2 feet in front of your own nose. Justin Hiko with a really massive super chat. I'm going to read that in just a sec. But I'm not even going out on a limb here. I am genuinely promising you there are countless experiences that you will never experience if you decide to disappear, right? There are so many people that you'll meet. There are so many places that you'll go. There are so many just... I mean, what? You're here, you know, getting all this advice and getting all this lovely attention from these people. Maybe if you decided to disappear a couple of weeks ago, you never would have experienced this, right? That's something. Find the tiniest of things that makes you happy. Just the smallest little thing. Maybe it doesn't make you happy anymore. Maybe it made you happy at some point in the past, right? I don't know, maybe you saw a cat on the way to school or something. I don't know. Think about those experiences and remember that in the future, you will experience that 1,000 times over. Good things don't stop happening. They will keep happening. And if you let yourself stay alive, even if it feels hard sometimes, you'll experience all of them, right? I know pressure is hard. I know that feeling sad every day is pretty rough, especially when it's 2022 now, and 2017 is when all of this began, which is a lot to deal with. But at the same time, you've clearly been dealing with this for such a long time, and you're still alive now. You've really been through it, but what that means is that you're capable of dealing with it. And that means that I know past this, any challenge that comes your way is something that you can deal with. So please, 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 don't give up. Because there are a lot of people out there who really care about you, and you'll only meet more of them if you let yourself stay alive long enough to meet them, okay? That's the most important thing I want you to remember, is that even if you have the inclination that people don't love you, they do. I promise you that they do. You want to hear it from me? I love you, right? You came here and took the time to ask me for advice, and I love you for that. And I'd be pretty devastated if I heard that you weren't around anymore, okay? So focus up and don't let this be the end of you, because I know that you're worth more than that, alright? Thank you. That's the end of that. Please, yeah, just please don't do anything stupid, and remember that we're all here for you. Got a lovely super from Justin Hiko I'm going to read out now. Lovely Aksupa. It's been a tough day. A few Omicron cases found in my city, and we're in lockdown now. I'm so very anxious, but your words and voice really comfort me a lot. I'll do a PCR test tomorrow. Wish to hear you say good luck to me and my family. Well, good luck. Good luck. You know, COVID anxiety we've talked about a little bit previously on the stream, and it's tough to deal with because it feels like it's very beyond us, but good luck with the test. I'm sure it's going to come back negative, but if it is positive and you do have it, it won't be the end of the world. It might be a miserable couple of weeks, might be quite lonely, but you'll come out the other side and you'll have a newfound appreciation for all the lovely things that you missed while you were in, okay? So please, stay calm and remember that we're all here for you. Thank you very much for the Aquaspa. That means a lot. All right, next up. A little bit of positivity with the meme. Remember this meme, guys, this applies to all of you, kindred, okay? You're not a king. You're the entire kingdom. So, this person says, I broke up with a close group of friends over 2 years ago, but I'm still very much not over them. We shared many interests, so lots of things remind me of them. I also never have friends who last, so I easily feel I don't belong anywhere. A meme for you. This is pretty hard. This is pretty hard because a lot of us can feel this way sometimes. I think that when we run into the instance where we feel as though our friendships don't quite last, I think what it can often mean is that maybe that friendship, even if it was wonderful, and even if we had a great time, perhaps it wasn't meant to last. And this is normal, right? Sometimes what we can experience is that while a friendship can be fast and intense and beautiful and amazing and fun, sometimes there are issues sort of a little bit deeper down that feel a little bit more difficult to cope with. And sometimes they're so egregious that we just don't really want to stick around. When you say you sort of broke up with them, I'm imagining that's because there were larger issues at hand. And even though it might be really difficult, it's common for people to miss people that they were not, that they sort of, it's common for us to miss people that we've had fallings out with. It's this innate morbid curiosity that makes you really want to kind of go back and think, oh, but what if, you know? And there's an excitement to making friends with someone that we feel like doesn't like us. You know, it almost feels like we're competitive creatures, and it almost feels like a bit of a challenge to go back and be like, hey, I know you don't like me, but I like you. Come on, you know. That whole enemies to lovers thing is very, or enemies to friends is a pretty compelling dynamic, but in the real world, it can tend to be pretty unhealthy. So here's the thing. When you say that you don't have any friends that last, it's upsetting, but it also means that I think you're quite adept at making friends. So the more that you try, and the more that you put yourself out there and try meeting these friends, I know that eventually you're going to meet a group of people that really stick. They're rare. They're very rare, and I won't try and sugarcoat that. They're really not easy to come across, and you may go through quite a few groups of people before you find some people that you want to stick with for the rest of your life. I mean, it's kind of a personal example, but recently I watched the new Spider-Man film. I didn't see it when it came out, but I watched it recently, and I think I realized why the boys from Luxiem and I have become such great friends so quickly. It's because, I don't know, I feel like I've met I feel like I'm Tom Holland meeting the other two Spider-Men, because we're a group of people who have such bizarrely similar interests and such bizarrely similar life experiences. I mean, literally all being five men from the past rocketed into the future that they don't quite understand, and then all sort of getting used to all of that kind of stuff. So, oh, everyone knows. If you look up the movie, they're at the top of the cast thing. Everybody knows. I'm sorry, but at the same time, I feel like I've met my brothers, and that's a rare thing. I'm old. I'm very old. And for all that time, I didn't really feel as though I'd ever met friends that I had really kind of connected with as well as I have with them. So what I would say is that even after all that time, you know, I met a lot of friends. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I should have thought about that first. I've had a lot of really good friends in my life, but none of them have quite, even in 400 years, none of them have quite sort of connected with me as well as those boys have. So I would say that no matter how many friends you meet and that don't quite connect with you as well as you would want, eventually you will meet your Spider-Man, and I promise you will. So just keep your eyes out and remember that the world's a big place. The world's a very big place, and they're out there for you somewhere. So, yeah, thank you very much for that. This one is from Yorasinagi. Good evening, my lord. I have 2 worries. Can you give me some advice? And here they are. I finished my English test recently. Okay, this one's kind of funny. I finished my English test recently, but I made a really bad mistake. There's one question which the correct answer should be act as, but I've been watching your streams a lot recently, so my brain automatically made me write act up on the paper, which if you were going to make any mistake from watching Luxiem, I feel like that's kind of a common one, so I wouldn't worry about it. Please help me to improve on my English grades. I'm not an English teacher, and I can't help you when it comes to actually learning the language. But what I will say is that mistakes like this seem like, because as and up are such similar words, they both have two letters, and you know, they both come after act, right? So I would say please don't take it too much to heart. If you're learning a new language, making these mistakes is common. I mean, the other day somebody sent me a super chat and I read out saying that I love penis in Japanese, which was really funny, but you know, imagine if I took that to heart and I said, well, I didn't know what that meant. Oh, you know, no, clearly I shouldn't keep learning Japanese. Then you know, I'd never be able to learn Japanese, and that would be a shame. Excuse me. So I'd say please, 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 please don't worry about it, okay? You will grow and you'll improve, and all of this stuff will, in the future, you'll look back on it and you'll realize that accidentally writing act up instead of act as is actually pretty funny. So, I mean, maybe it wasn't very nice for you, but you've made a lot of people laugh today, and I know that eventually you'll learn the difference and you'll get used to it, okay? So please don't worry too much about it. You will become fluent one day if you keep practicing, and I know you can, okay? They also say they're struggling with their school grades. I consider myself a good student by doing all a student should do, which is pay attention in class, take notes and understand the contents, but when it comes to exams, I just can't recall anything in my mind. All my hard work ends up with bad results, and I'm totally losing passion on studying. I feel useless to continue putting in the effort, but at the same time struggling to force myself to study, so I'll have a promising future. Should I just give up and go for what I truly and go for what I'm truly interested in? I feel sorry and guilty, but I really don't feel like studying anymore. Would like to know your opinions. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to say about this, and the one that really sticks to me is this. So I understand English isn't your first language, so I'd like to, so please feel free to ignore this if this isn't what you meant, but should I just give up and go for what I'm truly interested in? So does this mean that what you're studying isn't what you're interested in? Because in that instance, what I would say is that maybe I don't think that moving into a different line of work is giving up in that instance. I mean, I might be immortal, but I don't think any of you guys are. You know, you've got one life to work with, and I think that you're going to wind up feeling pretty miserable if you study so hard to get into a career that you just wind up not liking, right? I mean, God, I can't imagine doing a job other than ruling a clan. If you made me do anything else, I think I would just, I think I just, you know, I just wouldn't feel happy. I think that a lot of us are raised with the expectation that if we don't work hard and if we don't pick a quote-unquote sensible career, that we'll starve, you know, we won't be able to support ourselves. It's like, oh, you'll never make any money doing that. But really, like, I've always thought that if I did something I loved, I could cope with not having much money, you know? Like, I could cope with being poor if it meant doing something that actually made me happy. I would so much rather be an amateur small-time actor, you know, living in a nice city in a really cheap little apartment that I paid for by working as a barista, than I ever would having a really lovely, nice, massive house with a family if I worked as a bloody accountant. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, being an accountant is a really sensible career choice, but is it a sensible life choice? Only if you really enjoy accountancy, you know? So, This isn't meant to be influencing anyone to suddenly drop out of college. Please, you know, I don't want to be responsible for anyone getting scolded by their parents. That's my job. But what if you're all about your money, then go for it. But I mean, at the same time, I think that college especially is a time when all of us experience the question, am I in the right place? Am I doing what I love? Am I in the place that I really want to be? If you've studied your whole life to be a mathematician and then you get to college and you start experiencing the high ends of it and you suddenly think, God, I really don't like maths, do I? I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone for having a bit of a crisis in that situation. So really, I think that what it's about is deciding a right path forward and figuring out what your priorities are. If you want to have if you want to have a good income and you want to make a lot of money, dealing with having a pretty boring job, I think, is part of the course. And that's a decision you're just going to have to make. So for you, if what you're studying is really... if what you're studying is going to land you in a job that's either just comfortable or, you know, very good, and it's going to wind up, you know, kind of landing you a really nice house and family and all that kind of stuff, and that's what you want, then sure, it'll be hard, but you should keep going with it, and eventually it will work out for you, and you'll get what you want, and that's fine. That's a future that if you decide you want it, then you go for it, okay? But otherwise... I think that there's a part of the human spirit that isn't really quenched by money alone, and it's been shown that there are that once we earn a certain amount, we really do stop getting happier past a certain income, right? Once we're once we get to a certain point, and once we stop, once we get to a certain point, and once we earn a certain amount of money, we kind of just stagnate and stop getting happier. And I think it's at this point that we start to realize that if we're working a job that we went for purely to make money, then maybe... you know, we sort of think back and we think, maybe I should have done a job that I actually really wanted to do. So what I would encourage all of you to do, if you're struggling, think really carefully about what it is that you're doing. Reflect. Wonder, what is it that I feel I should do versus what is it that I really want to do? Because... in some instances, people change. You know something really interesting I heard a little while ago? The average American college student will change their major 3 times before they leave college. They might go in wanting to do engineering, and they'll leave having done a gardening major and then ended on theater. That's normal. Because when you're introduced to college and you're introduced to all these new people, it's normal for your interest to just rapidly cycle through all these new types of things that you want to do, and not being sure about it and not knowing how best to go about, you know, and not knowing what it is that you exactly want to do is so normal. So please don't worry. Take a moment to sit back. Take a moment to reflect, look at it carefully, and if you feel as though you're happy where you are, stay where you are. And if I was to give some advice about studying, I think it's kind of more important to study in advance, and then on the day before and of the exam, study light, but stay healthy. If you have the energy to do the exam and you have a clear head that isn't full of random facts, then I think that memorizing and relaying information is a lot easier. Cramming on the morning of will only make you more confused. At least that's my experience. So please, Don't worry about it, okay? Study maybe, you know, all the time that you need up until the exam, but right beforehand, let yourself bloody relax. Alright, that's about as far as my experience goes, and obviously I don't have, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about life in Asia and how Asian parents can be very sort of, a lot stricter about these kinds of things, so if you really don't have the option, I apologize, but hopefully maybe once you... No, but they're right, someone just said that Vox has the privilege of being rich and pretty, and I mean, I am very privileged, and sometimes I really sort of forget to sit back and think how much control I've had over different aspects of my life. And I think that sometimes when I give advice, I might not be giving something that people who don't have my kind of privilege can really follow. And it's a shame, but I'm hoping that maybe through all of this, maybe some of you might be able to follow this advice, but if you can't, then I understand, okay? And I'm sorry if I couldn't reach you. Now this is a big one. Okay. Sunny says, I did something really bad to other people. I'm pretty sorry about that. I think I don't have the courage to give apologies. I tried, but still feeling awful about myself. How can I let myself feel better? Should I apologize again? I think that this is something that everybody really struggles with. And I mean the vast majority of us at some point have done something that has made other people feel really bad. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was intentional, maybe we felt spiteful, maybe we felt like we were right to do so at the time, and then after some reflection we realized that we did the wrong thing. This is something that I think more people struggle with than will admit it, because I think that culturally it's very much frowned upon to admit when you have genuinely fucked up. I would almost say it's kind of like a an issue with maybe with social media and how judgmental people can really be. But in a lot of ways, what I think we wind up dealing with in this sort of an instance is the fact that when because it's easy to judge other people, you know, when there's friendship drama, when, you know, say for example you've got a little group of friends, one of them says something pretty nasty, whether intentional or unintentional, to someone else, we like hearing about it. We're like, oh my god, they said what? Huh? You know, and then we listen to it and then we get invested, but without realizing that maybe the person who said those things, A, maybe didn't mean to, or B, might feel pretty terrible about it. And so when that changes around, when the tables turn, when the other side of the coin is down on the table, what we start to experience is the reality that this happens to everybody. We all upset each other. We all say things we don't mean. We all get angry. We all get upset. It's easy to make fun of people who get angry at things or get upset with things in the moment when you're not connected to it, but then in the moment or in a little while, that will happen to you as well. We're all vulnerable to it. So, Sunny, I think the most important thing to remember is that this happens to everybody. Even if you did something really bad, we've all done things that are really bad. Maybe, like I said, maybe it was an accident, maybe it was just we were feeling really spiteful and we felt like we had the right to do so. You know, there are all sorts of reasons why we might do these things. All sorts of reasons. And again, yeah, someone in chat just brought up saying sorry or saying thank you can be really difficult for us, but I think starting out is the most important part of making amends with people that you've hurt, is to just say, I am sorry. which is hard, right? Self-awareness is the first step, and then afterwards comes commenting on that self-awareness. And reflection is hard because in that instance, when we make a mistake and when we hurt people, what we can wind up doing is making such, you know, it can really hurt to sort of admit, right, I did that, I said that, and this person that I really like felt this. Oof. Ow. You know, especially in our day and age when people online get sort of really dragged for having said these things. Maybe they didn't mean to, maybe they didn't mean this, maybe they didn't mean that. It happens, right? And it's really rough to kind of contend with, but what I'd like to say is that because it happens to everybody, the best thing you can do is be brave. Start out by just reflecting. Look back on the situation. Let's say, for example, that maybe you and your friends were chatting about something. Somebody said something that, whether intentional or not, got on your nerves. And you really kind of lashed out. You were like, fuck off. And you just got really pissed off at them. And you said something pretty nasty to them. You know, maybe you made a bit of a personal dig. Maybe, you know, maybe you might have walked up and given them a slap or something. Just anything like that. Anything that would have happened if you felt pretty kind of like hard done by or pissed off by one of your friends. This happens to everybody, right? You storm off upstairs, you go up to your room, and you just kind of sulk for a while, and you think, God, I fucking hate those guys, and you just sort of think about it. In that sort of a situation, give yourself time to be angry, because something made you angry. And if you try and immediately go back and, like, repent profusely, you're only going to make yourself feel worse, and that's going to cause things to ball up, and then it'll happen again. I'd say give yourself an hour. Give yourself a good hour to just sort of think, meditate, and be like, why'd I do that? Why'd I do that? But that's the thing. It starts off as this feeling of, oh, why did I do that? Like, oh, why on earth would I do that? Oh, I'm so stupid. But then you should think, why did I do that? What about it made me so upset that I felt the need to lash out, that I felt the need to hurt them? Once you understand that, you will, you know, once you understand that, you can come out and think like, right, okay, how can I apologize? Because when you apologize, even if you feel like they earned it, then maybe once you apologize, they can apologize too, right? So maybe you think, right, they said this kind of thing, and yeah, that's a good thing, right? Whether or not your friend accepts your apology shouldn't really make a difference to you. The best thing that you can do is apologize, make sure that they've heard it, and then if they don't accept it and they're still upset, give them space. Your apology is not about making yourself feel better. It's about apologizing. It's about making amends. And if that takes time, it just takes time. What matters is that after all of that self-reflection, you understand what happened, you understand why you're upset, go and talk to them in person, or if you don't know them in person, talk to them online, you know, either call them or text them, and say sincerely, hey, I'm sorry, I did wrong, and whatever matters to, whatever is relevant to the situation, just say, I'm sorry. Don't walk around the apology. Never say, I'm sorry that you felt this. Because that isn't apologizing for what you did. That's saying, oh, I'm sorry that after I slapped you that you wound up stinging, you know. Oh, I'm sorry that the world is just like that. You know, that's a pretty bad. A lot of celebrity apologies suffer from this. It's like, well, you know, I'm sorry that you guys were offended. You know, say sorry for what you did. Go up to them and say, what I did was not right, and I'm really sorry. And then they'll understand. Yeah, YouTuber apologies, right? And then after that, maybe they'll accept it. Maybe you guys can hug it out. But maybe they won't. Maybe they'll still be mad. And in that case, give them some space. Give them just a little bit of time, and I guarantee in just a little while, after a little bit of time, well, I shouldn't guarantee anything, because sometimes you really can fuck up and maybe, you know, you and that person won't get on very well for a while. I mean, maybe you've done something really bad. The right thing is holding yourself to a personal standard and saying, you know, you apologize and you're honest with yourself about that apology. But beyond that, if you have apologized, even if they don't accept it, you yourself, after having made that mistake, you have grown. So maybe you've lost a friend, maybe you've made a really terrible mistake, and you're not going to be able to be around that friend anymore. It's sad, but at the very least, you have learned something, and you've grown. And then, if that situation arises again, maybe you won't feel that way anymore, right? So please, don't feel as though you're alone, and don't feel as though in this sort of situation that you feel like you're unforgivable, because you aren't. You're worth forgiving, and I know that if you are expressing remorse, and if you want to apologize, then you deserve to be forgiven, if not by them, then by yourself. Remember to forgive yourself. Understand that you're human, just like the rest of you. Just like the rest of you guys, not me. I'm exempt from all this. I'm a demon. I don't have to worry about it. But yes, that's all I've got to say about that. Apologize with honesty, and if they don't accept your apology, accept it and move on as best you can. It's hard, but you have to try, and I know you can do it, okay? We're here for you. We have a lovely little kitty saying, I'm a mirror here. Hello, my lord. If you've ever felt socially exhausted before, I don't know if you've ever felt socially exhausted before, but if you have, I was wondering if you have any recommendations on what to do to recharge or / when recharging. On such days, I feel like I'm very unproductive. Thank you, my lord. Mwah. So being introverted is a strange beast, because we really can be the life of the party. You know, introverts can be very sociable, but then social exhaustion kicks in, and you need to take a moment. And sometimes people can be pissed off at you. They'll be like, "Where are you going? You know, we just got out," and all that kind of stuff. But as an introvert, you know, if you do feel socially exhausted, it means you have needs, and you need to be respectful of those needs. That's normal. That's appropriate. So, that's good for the cat memes. So, I think in this instance, what it really comes down to is being aware of what makes you feel relaxed, and just understanding that God, my mind's gone completely blank. Let me have some more tea. Understand that what you're going through is normal, and that the best way to deal with it is to be aware of what it is that helps you relax. So for me personally, if I'm feeling socially exhausted, I like getting out of my chair, sitting on my bed, or lying in my bed, getting my phone out, and watching some comfort videos on YouTube. I really like RuneScape videos. I like YouTubers like Settled, and I really like I also like Dark Souls content creators like Limit Breakers. You know, anything that feels like it is sort of niche and appeals to my personal interests is something that I can do to just sit there and kind of just Rayma, you're a nerd too. Don't act like you don't do this as well. Be aware of what it is that's comfy for you. Be aware of what it is that you need to do in these situations, and don't feel bad for doing it. If you do feel bad, then you really don't deserve to, because being an introvert means you're just sort of saddled with this unfortunate problem where if you spend time around people, then Eventually, you will start to feel exhausted. It's the opposite for extroverts, where spending time alone makes them exhausted, and that's pretty rough as well. Imagine if I was Remu's comfort watch. Imagine how embarrassing that would be. Yeah, Luxiem clips, right? I like watching Luxiem clips. But yeah, so like I was saying, find something that makes closing stream right now. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, Remu. Thank you very much for dropping by. I think that, yeah, like I said, be aware of what it is that makes you relaxed and happy, and just don't feel bad about it. Pay attention to it and let yourself just sort of sink into it, okay? Thank you very much for that. So this one comes with a lovely set of cat pictures. Hello, my lord. The question I put at the first picture, other pictures, they are my cats. And as we can see, this person has 3 lovely cats. This one looks very, the one on the top right looks very beautiful. The one on the bottom right looks very inquisitive. And the one on the bottom left looks as though it has seen a deadly predator and its eyes are very wide and it's trying to assess where the hell it should go. So what do they say? Hello, my lord. You are the first VTuber that I follow. Your voice is amazing. It makes me feel relaxed when doing all my works. I love all Luxiem members, but I spend more time on the internet to watch streaming these days. I have my final exam coming up tomorrow. Could you cheer me up, please? The last question is that I really hope you could give me some advice. I really enjoyed writing before getting into college, but now I have to write just for courses. It makes me sad and causes me to lose my passion in writing or any creative work. How do I fix the problem? Well, first of all, I think your English is completely fine. You shouldn't worry. Thank you very much for being brave enough to submit this. And I think the biggest thing is, we sort of went over this earlier. I think what you might be struggling with is the fact that maybe while you treated writing like a hobby, it felt a lot more fun. But now that you've gotten into the university side of things, it feels as though you're struggling from the upset related to needing to now monetize that hobby. It's not a hobby anymore, it's a career, and that's intimidating. Instead of just writing for yourself, you're now having to write for a whole load of people. Examiners, invigilators, board markers, all of those kinds of people who you think, will my writing be enough for them? And then after that, you have to think about audiences. You have to think, oh, will my writing be good enough for this demographic, right? It's a completely different thing. And while it's a hobby, you can just kind of write literally anything you want, you don't get to do that anymore, and it's a shame. So I think what you need to do is, again, you know, like half the advice I've given for every one of these, take a bit of time to self-reflect. Think about, what do I enjoy about writing? Think about, oh goodness me, you know, if my is my passion for sitting down and putting words on a paper, or is it for making money through writing? I think that you need to decide what your relationship is with writing. And to decide, you know, do I want to keep doing this as a career, or do I just want to keep it as a hobby? But what I would also say is that you will learn so much more about something from a genuine interest in it than you ever will from studying it in school or university. What you need to do, I think, is to also summon the difference, or understand the difference between writing on a college level and writing on a personal level. Because I'm going to be honest, writing on a college level is so different from everything that we read in books, right? If you want to write books, you don't need to do a college degree to do so. I'd say try your best to get through all these dreadful exams and all of these kinds of things, but also, you know, try your best to get through all of these exams, but remember that writing will never stop being what you want it to be. Try and keep that passionate side of writing alive on the side. You know, have maybe like a I don't know what your kind of writing is, but maybe if you've got some OCs or a book series or just an individual book that you've always thought about writing, just daydream about it during the day. Let yourself be really self-indulgent, and remember that once you're finished with university or college, you're gonna have all the time in the world to work on that on the side. And then maybe if you get a job as like, you know, maybe if you get a job, just a small one to make ends meet, maybe retail or food service or something like that, every time you're not working, you'll get a chance to do something completely different. Right now, your work is writing and your free time is writing. But in the future, I think you'll get a much better appreciation for writing as something to do as a way to relax. And so I would say, please try not to let college crush your interest in writing, and just sort of, yes, someone brought up in chat, take a break. Take a break from writing privately and do your best to focus on college, but remember that writing is what you're interested in. And if you stay passionate about it, once you're finished with college, then that independent spirit will come right back up, and I think that you're going to be just fine. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I hope that helped. Terrifying Squidward. Ken Desperate, I'll be in my senior year in a few months, and I can't help but feel like I'm missing out on so much more exciting stuff for my age, since I mainly focus on my academics. But watching your streams makes my life less dull, and I thank you very much for that. Squiddy. Squarf. Oh, Mochi with a massive Akasupa. Alright, Leon, I'll get to your thing in just a sec. Good evening, my lord. I just want to thank you for the stream. It's very kind of you for taking your time to do this. It's very helpful, even for those who didn't submit anything. I love you so much, and everyone in chat as well. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Oh, that's really, really kind of you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much for the Akaspa. It's always surprising to get that kind of thing, but thank you, Mochi. So when it comes to this sort of thing, focusing on academics, obviously it's good to focus on school, because if you stay in school and you stay in college, you'll wind up with a really fortunate career, and you'll probably wind up having a pretty high income job in the future, and that'll be pretty good for you. And with that kind of money, you'll have the chance to, you know, do all sorts of exciting things. But while you're still young, you know, doing exciting things as a grown-ass adult is different from doing it when you're young. And so I would say, I don't know. I think that for most of, I'm not sure, because I've never been in an environment where I've needed to study extremely hard. You know, when I have been in and out of university a few odd times in my years, but I never really went for academic stuff. I was more of a practical courses guy, and I think that what you should try and do is maybe cut just a tiny bit of time away from your academics. If this is something you're worried about, try and find something extracurricular that you can do that makes you feel excited. Maybe there's maybe your school has kind of like an extracurricular activity that you can do that makes you feel excited. Maybe it'll be something like a trip somewhere. I mean, I really don't know what your interests are, but I would say if this is something you're worried about, you will benefit from spending just a little bit less time studying and a little bit more time chasing your muse and letting yourself relax a little bit. You know, maybe you want to go for hikes, maybe you want to learn how to do a sport, maybe you want to do this, maybe you want to do that. Maybe just spend a tiny little bit less time studying, or maybe a tiny little bit less time doing nothing. You know, I mean, I won't be offended if you don't come to the streams as often, because you're only going to be young once. So take advantage and just let yourself have fun, okay? Don't worry about it, because we're still going to be here no matter how much you decide to come. Maybe, I don't know, get into running and then have the streams on in your headphones while you're going. Get YouTube Premium or something, I don't know. There are lots of different things that you can try and do, and what I would say is just try not to worry about it too much, but if you are worried about it, focus hard on trying to find a way of giving yourself enough time to do things that make you excited. I hope that helps. This is a serious concern between my rabbit child and my roomie, who's constantly getting ignored by my son. Would you be kind enough to give me some suggestions in regards? Or perhaps how you tamed Mister? Well, this is a rough one, because sometimes animals have instincts that we, you know, civilized people do not really have. They might, like, your roommate might just give the rabbit a really bad vibe. I don't think there's really much of a way that you can, you know, get that out of him. I mean, I had a friend who had 2 cats, and one of the cats was really great, you know, and came up and was all friendly with me, and the other one was like super distrusting, would kind of like scamper away every now and again, and that's just sort of the way it was. I had another friend who had a dog who would try to kill me every time it saw me. It would just turn towards me and just sort of was like. Sometimes they just kind of decide that someone is dangerous and they're scared of them, and with animals that's a pretty rough way of doing it. Some animals sense nasty people, you know? I mean, I guess I'm a nasty person, but I don't want to say that about your roommate. So what I would say... Also, Raymond, what are you doing here? I thought you closed the stream. Yeah, they probably sense you too with your lion ass. But anyway, I think that what you could do... I guess with animals there are a few exercises that you could do to try and elevate the rabbit's trust in your roommate. Like maybe make your roommate give it a carrot. I'll close it after I finish. You said you were going to close it earlier. You said you were going to close it right now, but you didn't. So what I imagine is that the right way of sorting this, you know, the sorts of things where you I'm not an expert on pet ownership. I don't have a pet at the moment. But what I reckon you should do is try and help your rabbit associate your roommate, instead of like the pressure to be your friend or your roommate's friend. Try to help the rabbit associate the roommate with food, you know? Every time the roommate arrives, every time the rabbit sees the roommate, give the roommate some treats. Just give him a little pocket full of treats. So every time the rabbit comes around the corner and sees a treat and sees the roommate and gets scared, the roommate just takes a treat out of its pocket, gently puts it on the ground and walks away. And then after that, what the rabbit will do is it will start, every time it sees the roommate, it comes to expect a treat. And it's like, oh, maybe the roommate's not so bad after all. And then in the future, instead of, obviously not too many treats, you know, maybe find a healthier option instead of like fattening up the rabbit, so it just sort of starts like going clockwise around the corridors to get an infinite amount of treats from the roommate. You know, don't do that. Of course, it's Pavlov. So that's how you train animals. It's fine. Exactly. And so it comes to expect food whenever it sees the roommate. And then from there, what you can do is after inevitably it associates the roommate more with food than with fear, then maybe the roommate can get the treat out and go up and give it to the rabbit directly. And then maybe after a little while of that, it can go up to the rabbit and give it a little pet when it gives it the food. And then sooner or later, I guarantee the rabbit will suddenly not see your roommate as a terrifying eel monster, as I'm imagining it visualizes it, but instead will see him as a beautiful, beautiful... Oh dear. This keeps happening. The bitrate isn't too low. Oh no. I'm gonna have to do some troubleshooting on after the stream to try and figure this out. But anyway, so yeah, that was so that's that. Oh, it's fine now. Oh, good. Good. Yeah, no, it just sort of does that every now and again. I'm gonna figure that out. I swear to God, I'm gonna figure that out. But yeah, so hopefully that'll help, and it will start seeing your roommate as a lovely, bountiful source of food. And then eventually you can work it out and make sure that he's not an infinite source of treats, but maybe he's just a source of pets or something, which might be nice. This person says, "My lord, you are my today and all of my tomorrows," and they have a lovely meme where they're calling me perfect, which I don't know if I'm perfect. I mean, none of us are perfect, but there you go. All right. Hi, good afternoon. I struggled for a long time about whether to send this tweet or not because my English is not good. I'm afraid that the wrong words will bring you a bad experience. Well, not at all. I think that you're doing completely fine with your English and it's not giving me a bad experience at all, so don't worry about it. I want to ask how to make myself more confident because I have lost many opportunities because of my inferiority complex, which makes me deeply depressed. I hate myself like this and I don't know how to change it. If you read this tweet, I'll be very happy. Also, I'd like to ask you to wish me a happy birthday. Oh, well, happy birthday. My birthday is 8 days away. Love you. Mwah. Oh, I love you too. Mwah. Okay. Self-confidence is a rough thing. It's really... Don't point out that I skipped the daddy. Don't point that out. I'm just... You know, just try not to pay attention to it. I don't want to get... I don't want to get used to it. Shush. But okay, so self-confidence is a difficult thing. If you are experiencing genuine self-hatred, I think that this is kind of beyond the point where I can sort of just magic that away, and I think that therapy would probably really, really help. But when it comes to sort of like gradually improving that sort of thing, if you've lost opportunities, I think that what you might be suffering from is kind of progressing in life maybe a little bit too fast. You know, when you seek opportunities, you're opening yourself up to be judged, and you're opening yourself up to have your insecurities scrutinized, which can be really, really difficult. So in the meantime, what I would say is maybe try and take just a little step back and treat your own self-love like an opportunity, right? So instead of trying to be productive in a work sense, maybe try and be productive in a way that you see working on your self-image as productive, right? Because that is productive. You're developing yourself so that you can be more productive in future, but also don't try to think that your self-worth is determined by your productivity. You're allowed to be unproductive for a little while, okay? So try and see your self-development as something productive to do, and however that takes shape is up to you, right? Maybe it's about your looks, maybe it's about your personality, maybe it's about what you've achieved in life. I think that attending therapy is a really, really big step, and given how serious this sounds, I think that attending therapy would be a really nice way of kind of getting around a lot of what you've been coping with. But also, I'm completely lost now. But yeah, so attending therapy is a really big first step, and then from there, based on what you tell your therapist, you can try some other things. And what I would say is just take a step back from the hyper terrifying competitive world of, you know, society, and just sort of focus on you for a while, because I think you need that. Remember that, and you know, look at me, right? You shouldn't hate yourself, because I think you're really cool, okay? I think you're really swell, and I really appreciate that you've been here for the stream and that you've decided to open up. That in itself takes bravery, it takes courage, it takes compassion for yourself. Therapy won't always be available. Yeah, in chat, you're right. Therapy won't always be available, but there are resources online that you can go to instead. You ever hear of, I'm not sponsored by them, but you ever hear of BetterHelp? You know, I mean, that's something online that's available for you. There are other websites. I think there's one called like 7 Cups of Coffee, which 7 Cups of Tea or something, just 7 Cups, which is like a free therapy service. There are all sorts of different things that you can do. So find something that you can do. Maybe it's as simple as buying a book. I have never tried BetterHelp. I'm not sure if it's good, but I know it's an online therapy service, which might not be too expensive. If you're too broke for therapy, I understand that in some parts of the world you can get on a waiting list and receive some for free, although it might take a little while. In some parts of the world you won't have that. It's complicated. But if you can't attend therapy... yeah, not sponsored, by the way. Just making sure you guys know this is just my experience. But maybe after that, if you don't have any other options, maybe buying a book about your sort of situation might be good. Maybe just some private reading about it might help. You never know. It's difficult, but what I would say is to just try and find an option that you can use to find some counseling, find some therapy, and in the meantime, like I said, spend some time working on yourself. and treat that as something productive. And I assure you that after you're all done with that, you'll feel much, much better. So, with all of that in mind, what I would like to say is that I think is going to be all I'm going to say for today. It was a really, really nice stream. I think maybe a little bit weird to go for, but what I really enjoyed about this was that I think I learned that I don't have as much of an understanding of human issues as I think that I previously did, you know? I came in here with a lot of confidence, and I think that afterwards I really sort of realized that sometimes I didn't really know what advice to give, and it was kind of difficult. Oh, really nice big super. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, like the hardest thing about it is that when I come in with, you know, difficult, trying to give people advice about things that are difficult, you know, a lot of chat have been really, really helpful in saying, oh, you know, this piece of advice, you know, maybe what if that's not available? What if that's not that? And I think that in some instances, you know, chat were really, really helpful in helping me understand some of the things that I don't understand about human nature and that I don't understand about different parts of the world. So all in all, while I hope that I helped, you guys also really helped me understand certain things that I didn't have an understanding of myself. So I just want to say thank you all ever so much for coming out. It's been a really, really nice stream, and I'm glad that it seems to have resonated with so many people. So I'm sorry I didn't get around to reading many supers today. Just wanted to focus on the issues at hand, but I'll be reading those out in a Zatsudan as soon as I can. So thank you guys very, very much for coming out, and I really want to thank you all so much for all of your support. I love you guys, and if you're ever struggling, remember that the Kindesperate tag is open, so if you feel like you would like to put your issues out there and think that that would help, then by all means. So it's not going anywhere. So thank you guys very much for coming out, and I will see you for another stream tomorrow. Thank you guys.